Battles. What kind of battles are you fighting today? Maybe you're in a fight for your life. Maybe there's some conflict at work. Maybe you've got a battle that's happening at home. Maybe you're in a battle for truth or for what's right or justice. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Israelites in their very first post-Egypt battle. A battle at a place called Rephidim. Now imagine yourself being the Israelites. The Israelites have been through plagues. They've been through the angel of death. They've been through the Red Sea. They've gone past Pharaoh's army, and they're on their way to Mount Sinai, but they haven't quite arrived yet. They're at a place right here, halfway in between, called Rephidim. And at this point, they begin to be attacked by the Amalekite army. Now, the passage that we'll read today doesn't have this detail, but later on, Moses reflects in the book of Deuteronomy on what was happening in that moment. It says this in Deuteronomy 25, beginning at 17. Remember what the Amalekites did to you along the way when you came out of Egypt? When you were weary and worn out, they met you on your journey and cut off all who were lagging behind. They had no fear of God. Now, in order to be an Israelite and survive with all the thousands and thousands of people who were there, you didn't have to be the fastest one in the whole troop. You just couldn't be the slowest one. You couldn't be the kid or the elderly one or that lady who had to go to the bathroom every 10 minutes. Those were the ones who were left in the background, and those were the ones who were getting picked off one at a time by the Amalekites. The Israelites really had no choice but to go to battle in this moment. It was either let your slowest and most vulnerable be killed, or go to battle. Now, the historical struggle between the Israelites and the Amalekites goes back at least 400 years. You may remember earlier in the biblical narrative, two brothers named Jacob and Esau. Jacob was the mama's boy. He loved to stay at home. And later on, Jacob had 12 sons, and those 12 sons became the 12 tribes. Jacob had been renamed Israel, so these were the 12 tribes of Israel. They moved to Egypt and multiplied into the Israelite nation. Well, Jacob's brother was Esau. And Esau was a man's man. He was a hunter. He was an outdoorsman. He loved to go out and kill things and cook them for his dad. And you might remember that even though Esau was the oldest, Jacob, the deceiver, stole both his blessing and his birthright. And so when it came Esau's turn to be able to get his blessing from his father, all that was left was this statement: "You will live by the sword and serve your brother." And this is coming through to this day. Now, it was Esau's grandson who is named Amalek. And it was the descendants of Amalek who became the Amalekites. And now, 400 years later, the descendants of Amalek have become a great nation. And the descendants of Jacob have become a great nation. So this battle that's a battle between nations actually began as a battle between brothers. But the Israelites had very little chance in this battle. And the reason is that they were FOS, fresh out of slavery. I mean, these guys were really good at making bricks. Maybe some of them had prepared some food, maybe some had done some basic agriculture, but none of them had been through military training. They weren't warriors, and they were going against the Amalekites, who were warriors. Now, it appears as though part of the plunder that they had gotten from the Egyptians was weapons, and they would have the opportunity to use these weapons in this battle. Now, as this was their first time in battle in 400 years, beating the Amalekites would be challenging. But we have a new character who's emerging on the scene. This is the very first time in the Bible that we see a character named Joshua, a military leader who would lead the Israelites in the generation after Moses. And Joshua's name means Yahweh saves, or God is salvation. And in this passage, his name will prove to be prophetic. Now, armies would generally march out or ride into battle with a huge banner that they would be carrying. This banner would be a rallying point for the people to rally around. It would give them directions as to which direction to move or when they should retreat. It was a key piece of the military strategy, but the Israelites didn't even have a banner. I mean, an army knew that as long as their banner was flying, they need to be in the midst. But what would the Israelites do without a banner? Well, the banner wouldn't be a banner at all. It would be a prophet, their leader, Moses, up on the top of the hill, holding up a staff. The very same staff that he had used before. The staff or the rod that became known as the rod of judgment. This is the staff that Moses would have used to throw at the feet of Pharaoh that would have turned into a snake. This is the staff that he would have thrust into the Nile River that turned it into blood. This is the staff that he would have held up before the Red Sea as the seas parted by God's power. This is the same staff that he would use to strike the rock and water would come out of it. It was the rod of judgment. And whenever you were opposed to God, you did not want to see the rod of judgment coming. But for the Israelites, it was also the staff of deliverance. Because every time that they were in trouble, the power of God through the staff of deliverance would bring them towards new life and new hope. And I want you to imagine being Joshua or one of the warriors of God in the valley in the middle of the battle and being able to look up onto the hill and see the staff of deliverance being held up on your behalf. How that would encourage you about your future, how it would give you courage for the battle, how it would give you hope for the direction that you were to be headed in the future. You know, as you face your battles every day in the valley of Rephidim that you live in, I want you to consider how dependence on God and His provision for you, for deliverance, plays a key role, and how the community that you're a part of also plays a key role in the battles that you face.